She doing a spacewalk, Abigail?
Yes.
Awesome. Boys and girls, welcome to Chapter 43 in American Heritage. Abigail and I are in our NASA shirts. And this is this is an American girl, Luciana, in her space camp outfit to join us for fun. Okay, so join with us and turn to page 422 in our American Heritage book. Okay, so this is one of those chapters where we have two people. But we're going to break them up into two videos. The first one is going to be John Glenn. So John Glenn, we're still going to look at both of them in this picture on page 422. Abigail, tell me when John Glenn was alive.
John Glenn was born in 1921 and till 2016.
2016. So how many years ago was that?
Years ago?
Did he die?
4.
He died 4 years ago, boys and girls. I could have met him. I didn't, but we could have met him. And what about our friend Neil Armstrong? When did he live, Abigail?
He was born in 1930 and through 2012.
2012.
I was
so
4.
A lot of the people we were learning about lived from like 18 something to 19 something. Now we're learning 19 something to 2000 something. So it is possible that we could have seen them in our lifetime. And that's why you see their picture. Their picture's in color because guess what? It's more modern. There's color photography. So John Glenn, how old was he when he died, Abigail? Beat the kids.
I can't beat you guys. You guys are so smart.
Okay, so 21 to...
19 plus 16, right?
No, 19. It's 1921 to get to 100
no,
would be...
100.
So 79 plus 16.
What?
Look, because 21 to get to 2000.
Oh, 79. Okay.
79
what?
plus 16 is...
95.
It's like 80 plus 15. Yeah, 95. He was 80 plus 15. Yeah, 95. Wow, he lived to be old. And our friend Neil Armstrong, how old did he live to be?
70 plus 12 is 82.
Awesome. And let's make sure that our friends can hear you nice and loud. So
82!
You have to use your teacher voice. This is a teacher voice.
82.
All right. So let's look at the timeline before we turn the page. John Glenn, you can see he was born a little bit before Neil, and he was born a little after and he died a little after. And the reason we're both going to learn about them is their connection in the same chapter has to do with what? Space. Okay. Did either of them live during World War I?
Let's see. No.
But they both lived during
World War II.
And happy birthday, America. America's 200th birthday. That's a fun fact. Okay. Do you want to start us out, Abigail? Nice and strong and loud. Here we go.
2 small boys, many miles apart, discovered their love for flying when their fathers took them on the first airplane rides. John Glenn was 8 years old. How many of you are 8 years old?
Some are still 8. All our summer birthdays.
And Neil Armstrong was only 5 years old when it all began. These boys had no idea they would grow up to become pilots as well as pioneers of space.
Yes, so sometimes the things that you do right now that you're like, I remember building Legos when I was 8, and then all of a sudden you're an engineer when you're older and I'm reading a chapter about you in history. So you never know what God's using in your life right now. John Glenn, growing up, can I read?
Hold on. And these pioneers aren't like the pioneers with the prairie schooners. They're like different kind of.
Pioneers are like the ones who venture off and do something.
Yeah.
New and explore. Growing up, red, white, and blue flags line the streets and storefronts of a small town. Yes, you see some behind us. In a small town in Ohio. As the marching bands played in the parade, John Glenn Jr.'s heart swelled with pride. He loved the flag. He loved his country and wondered what he could do to serve the United States. He could not have imagined that the world would soon watch as he soared into space, not once, but twice. As a young child, John loved building model airplanes. He found jobs washing cars and sold vegetables to earn extra money so that he could buy his own bicycle. He's not the first one we've learned that sold vegetables to help raise money when he was young. This time to buy his own bicycle. And we know Caden's getting a new bicycle soon, so that's really fun.
I just got a new bicycle too.
Yeah. He delivered newspapers in his neighborhood. That was something that was very common back in the day. That boys would go take their bicycles and they would deliver newspapers, the actual paper newspapers to people's doorsteps.
Just chuck them.
Yes, be careful. That's very wobbly. It's going to feel like we're in space. So be careful, please, with the table.
Probably
Okay.
gonna fall.
All right, Abigail, I'm going to ask you something and you tell me what it is.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Look at the bottom of the page, 423. It says, who was the first astronaut to step on the moon? To actually step on the moon.
You're supposed to say go.
Go.
Neil Armstrong.
Not louder.
Neil Armstrong.
Armstrong. Show me your arm. It's strong. So the first one to step, I'm going to step on your arm, was Neil Armstrong. Okay, who was the first American to orbit? Remember, go around. Orbit the Earth. Not the first one to step on the moon. Who was the first one to orbit the Earth? Go.
There's more to it.
And he was also a senator, and he was also the oldest man in space. Go.
John Glenn.
John Glenn. Okay, and the first American in space, like who actually went there at all. Go.
Alan Shepard.
Okay, those will be the big questions on your test, like which one is which. Thankfully, you can use your book, so if you get confused, you can double check.
Yeah.
Please do. Okay, and what is a person who is trained to travel and work in space?
An astronaut.
An astronaut. Okay, here we go. Let's turn the page. Now we're at the top of page 424, at the very top. Popcorn Abigail.
John had big dreams that included flying. While John was in college, he learned about a program that would allow him to take flying lessons for free. He quickly enrolled in his class and learned to fly. On December 7th, 1941, as John listened to the radio, he heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. That's in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Pearl Harbor Navy base in Hawaii. He enlisted. Remember, this is in italics, so you gotta
Shaky.
pay attention to this.
You're right.
He enlisted and served in his country in the U.S. Navy as a pilot during World War II. Next, Mr. Glenn served in the Korean War. What?
You gotta be careful. It's
In the
shaking.
Korean War. He flew a total of 149 combat missions and received many awards for his faithful service to his country. In 19...
Well, pause. So what caused John Glenn to enlist in the Navy? What was the big event that made him want to enlist in the Navy?
bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Yes. So in Hawaii, there's a naval base, Pearl Harbor. You could still go visit it right now. I mean, not right now, but you can make a trip to go to Hawaii. Pearl Harbor, there's still a ship that's there you can see. So there was a bombing at Pearl Harbor. It's a naval base in Hawaii. And he said, you know what? The war is happening. I'm going to enlist. And so he joined the Navy. So what two wars did John Glenn serve? Not World War I and not World War II. World War II and the
Civil War. No. I'm just kidding. The Korean War.
Say it with confidence.
The Korean War, not the
Excellent.
Civil War.
And if
I'm
you
just
sit up, we
kidding.
could see your shirt a little bit better. That's awkward. But okay, so in 1943, John Glenn married his childhood sweetheart.
Aww.
Annie Castor. Not Castor. She supported him in his desire to fly and encouraged him to keep doing what he loved. He left the military, but he still loved flying. Ooh, more italics, Abigail. He became a test pilot and eventually set the speed record for the fastest flight in the continental United States. The continental United States are basically the one on the main continent, so not Alaska and Hawaii. The special plane flew 725 miles per hour. The flight took only 3 hours, 23 minutes, and 8 seconds. Do you remember back in our chapter for, I'm going to turn back a couple pages, when we looked at Amelia Earhart? It was talking about how fast she flew. And it was
New
a
records.
big deal. New records. Did you see it? Learning to fly.
No, I feel like wouldn't be in learning to fly. 180 miles per hour.
Good job, Abigail. On 411, she found it. It said she flew her plane 180 miles per hour, which was fast for the time. Now, fast forward back to our chapter now. John Glenn flew 725 miles an hour. That's quite a difference.
It's a lot more.
Yes. He could get much farther, much faster going that speed. Astronaut, Popcorn Abigail.
Hold on.
Do you have to sneeze?
Yeah, I do, but it's like
Do
stuck.
you want to read for a
I'm
little bit?
okay.
Okay.
Astronaut. John Glenn was the one of 7 men chosen by NASA to be the first astronauts. These men trained hard. Mr. Glenn was disappointed when he was not chosen to be the first or even the second man in space. He was finally chosen for the 3rd Mercury mission.
Okay, so just because he wasn't picked first, he was like, okay, if I'm not first, I'm not doing it. No. So he was disappointed, but did he persevere? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to get closer to me, that would be great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Important places. Let's look at them. We have Florida. Do you see it on the map, Abigail?
I love Florida.
And we have Texas. So Texas is the same state where your Uncle Kevin lives with his family. Your dad's brother. So that's Texas. And then we have Florida where Mickey lives. And it's also home
Mickey lives in California.
Cape Canaveral. So what is special about Houston, Abigail?
Houston, isn't that the capital?
Let's look at our map.
Oh.
It's the home of what?
NASA.
Houston. That's why.
Wait, isn't Dallas the capital?
No, this is the home of NASA.
What's the capital though?
Is it Dallas?
It's either Dallas or Houston
or Austin.
Honestly, I don't know.
I don't remember. But let's not focus on that right now. Okay, so Houston is the home of NASA, and in some movies they'll say, or even quotes of space movies, it'll say, Houston, we have a problem. Houston, you can try that yourself. Houston, we have a problem. Because the home of NASA is in Houston, and so they're calling back to Houston. Okay, Cape Canaveral, Florida. What's special about that, Abigail?
It's the place where rockets and spacecrafts were first launched. Oh no, it's our launch, not first.
Yes, and do you know that your grandpa Craig, who worked on the Discovery, went to Florida several times? They invited him because he was an engineer and he worked on the
all the
cooling
way
ducts.
Across America.
Yes, so he worked on the cooling ducts for the Discovery, the space shuttle. And they invited him. They said, do you want to go see a launch? And they do check. And they check all the things because once it goes up, right, everything has to be in line. And he went there, and every time he went, guess what happened?
Didn't launch.
It never launched. So his whole career, he worked from college all the way to retirement on the Discovery and went to go see launches and never saw a launch. But he did go. He went to Florida, to Cape Canaveral, but yet never saw a launch.
Which was kind of cool, though.
Fun fact. Okay, ready? We're on page 425.
Can I read?
Sure.
John Glenn would be the first American to orbit Earth. Remember, that's in italics.
Yes.
On February 20th, 1962, Friendship 7.
What is that? What's a Friendship 7?
It's an aircraft.
Yeah, it's the name of this. You can actually see it in the picture right here. And if you ever go to OMSI, there's a little pod that looks like this.
You can put your feet
You can lay in it and see how small it is, this little capsule. So this is the Friendship 7. And it says on the side, Friendship 7. That's just what they named the ship. Okay, so the Friendship 7, keep
I
going.
wonder if they were all friends.
Probably.
Launched from Cape
Canaveral.
There you go. Florida. And soared into the sky. Soon, Mr. Glenn was in orbit. What a sight! He orbited the Earth 3 times in about 5 hours. Wow, that's crazy.
That feels like it'd be super crazy fast.
During this trip, he was able to see 3 sunrises and sunsets from space. That's pretty.
That's cool to see 3 sunrises and sunsets in 5 hours. Because you're going around and you see. That's cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because different parts of the Earth, the sun sets at different times.
Right, well, he went faster than one rotation because he went around the whole Earth 3 times in 5 hours. So it was like, woom, 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 woom. Sorry, 3 times. Woom, 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 in 5 hours.
Woom, woom, woom. Oh.
No, 3 times, 5 hours. Amazing. But, are you ready? The Friendship 7 began to have problems. The heat shield on the spacecraft looked as if it might fail. This could cause the spacecraft to catch fire when it re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. Mission Control wasted no time in getting Mr. Glenn back to Earth. Flames covered the space capsule as it sped through the air, but the heat shield did not fail. The capsule landed safely in the ocean and was soon back on land.
Yay!
During his mission, John Glenn spent only a few hours in space, but it had been a success. John Glenn became an American hero. Even President John F. Kennedy visited him. Many parades were held in Mr. Glenn's honor. People waited for hours to see the first man who had orbited the Earth. So, who was the first man who orbited the Earth?
John Glenn.
Yes. You want to finish that page for us?
Yes. John Glenn hoped to return to space, but President Kennedy wanted him, this new American...
Wanted to keep him.
wanted to keep this new American hero safe. He would not travel back to space. At least, not yet.
So basically, he's this big famous celebrity of space right now for America. And they said, well, we're just going to keep him here for a little bit. Because he almost died, right? If his capsule had burned up, would he have landed safely? He would have orbited and then not made it home. So they kept him out of space for a while. Politics.
After his space flight, John Glenn began looking for another way to serve the country. Politics became his next career. John Glenn was elected president of
elected to represent. Close.
Elected to represent Ohio as a U.S. Senator and held office for 25 years.
So when John Glenn was back on the ground, what did he do, Abigail?
He was elected to represent Ohio.
Yeah, he was a representative of Ohio as a U.S. Senator. So if I asked you on a quiz, Abigail, I said, who, after his space flight, was a U.S. Senator for 25 years? Who would you say?
John Glenn.
Excellent. You would get that right.
Whoa.
+1 for Abigail. Okay, one more trip to space. This is really fun. So remember, he loved this. And look at this picture of John Glenn. Look at the picture. No, hold on, Abigail. Take a picture of John Glenn on page 422. Do you see him? Right? Smile, dimple. Still not too young, but then fast forward.
He's an old man.
Yeah. And that picture will tell you what this little section is about. I'm going to start reading. One more trip to space. Senator Glenn never gave up on his dream to go back to space. When he was 77 years old.
Wow.
Okay, most people are retired and going on cruises by then. He heard about a study NASA wanted to do on aging in space. This could be his chance to return to space again. He applied for the job and was selected. He would have to do the training any astronaut would do, but he was not a young man anymore. Could he do it? Yes. He completed his training and was ready to be an astronaut one more time. So 77 years old, he had to do astronaut training. On October 28th, 1998, that was, Abigail, like the first year I met your dad.
Aww, that's cute.
Yeah. John Glenn returned to space aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery. Look at the connection. Discovery, your grandpa worked on the Discovery. I met your dad. I started hanging out with your dad in 98. This is my chapter.
So cool.
This mission sent 6 men and 1 woman to do medical research. So do you remember, boys and girls, in class when we watched a video of the one person returning from the International Space Station, and they had to be carried out like a baby because their muscles and things didn't work? So when you have 0 gravity and your body is in space, it doesn't react the same way it does here on Earth.
Yeah.
So they wanted to see, what does that look like in an older person's body versus a younger person's body? So that's why they wanted John Glenn to go up there. So the mission sent 6 men and 1 woman to do medical research. So we're at the sentence just above the picture. The crew spent 9 days in space, that's not very long, and orbited the Earth 134 times. They went around a lot and traveled over 3 million miles.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
3 million.
So,
Don't count to 3 million, it's too long.
no, it's 6 zeros, right?
Yes, 6 zeros. As part of his crew, John Glenn became the oldest person to travel in space. So, who was the oldest person to travel in space? Who was it, Abigail?
It was John Glenn.
Yay! Can you finish reading this page for us?
Yes.
I'm going to take her back.
Oh.
I like her on my side.
Okay. John Glenn spent his life serving in his country as a true patriot. In 2011, John Glenn was among the 3 astronauts on Apollo 11 and was represented as a congressional gold medal for his service as an astronaut in the space program.
Let's read that again. In 2011, Mr. Glenn, along with 3 astronauts of the Apollo 11, was presented a congressional gold medal.
What did I say?
I thought you said represented. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I heard it wrong. Was presented a congressional gold medal. So congressional, who do you think gave it? Who do you think that medal's from?
The Congress.
Yeah, the Congress picks a congressional gold medal for his service as an astronaut in the space program. So all these years, and now isn't that fun? It was the Apollo 11 was in 2011. Fun connection. Okay, while looking out the window of the space shuttle, Mr. Glenn said, so remember, this is a direct quote. This is actually what he said. He's picture him right now, looking out the window in the space shuttle. He says this. Do you want to read it in a man voice?
To look out this kind of creation out there is not believe in God is...
Wait, hold on. Let's start that again. Just read in a regular voice then.
To look out on this kind of creation out there and not believe in God is to me impossible. It just strengthens my faith. I wish there were words to describe what it's like.
So he is looking out the window of the space shuttle, right? And he's looking at the earth and he can see what we've never seen other than like maybe on a video. And he said to look out at this creation out here and not believe that there is a God is impossible to me. Yeah. He sees the amazingness of creation. He's like, how could you not believe there's a God? Yeah. It just strengthens my faith. I wish there were words to describe what it's like. So the closest we've seen to this is video, but he's up there and he's like, look at God's handiwork. This is incredible. How could anyone not believe that there is a God? And what does Psalm 19:1 say, Abigail?
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sweth his handiwork?
Yeah, it's showeth is his King James. So the firmament showeth his handiwork, which means like all of the world shows his handiwork. So the heavens declare the glory of God, and all the earth, like everything you see here, shows his handiwork, like what he creates.
Yeah.
Awesome. True or false? Are you ready? Do you want to read them?
No. It's my turn to answer questions.
Okay, here we go. I wish she could do her thumbs without pulling her. I don't want to rip her shoulders out. How about we just go true, false? Want to do it? I'll give you the answer. She'll turn around. John Glenn took swimming lessons. Yeah, because sometimes it's so obvious. You're like, maybe it's true. No, sometimes it's so obvious. You're like, that you're making it easy for you. John Glenn took swimming lessons before he graduated from college. Does swimming have anything?
He might have, but
does this have anything to do with swimming? No. The answer is false. He took what?
Flying lessons.
Yeah, that was false. He took flying lessons. Okay, number 2, when John Glenn heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor, he decided to enlist in the military. So when it has the underlined word, that's the focus. Was it actually Pearl Harbor that was bombed? When John Glenn heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor, he decided to enlist in the military. The answer is true. Okay, number 3, John Glenn became a pilot and flew in both World War II and the Korean War. Not the Civil War. It is true. It was World War II and the Korean War. Okay, number 4. John Glenn set the speed record for the fastest flight across the continental United States. True. This is more fun when they're true. The false ones are boring. Okay, number 5. 3 men were chosen to be the first astronauts. Now, do not get this confused. In the next chapter, there's 3 people that go up to the moon, but it is not. Think of the Friendship 7, and you'll remember how many people were chosen, the different flights. But if you remember Friendship 7, you remember there was 7 men actually chosen to be the first astronauts. That is false. False.
Okay, you'll do false for that every time.
Yeah, false. False.
She's getting a little dizzy. Turn her the other way.
No, they have to be trained to spin and be dizzy. That's part of their training. Number 6. John Glenn was the first American to orbit the Earth. What do you think, Abigail?
What?
Number 6. John Glenn was the first American to orbit the Earth.
It's so weird.
And it is true. Okay, number 8. Did we skip one?
No, I'm gonna skip 7.
I just said 7 and the last one was 6.
No,
Okay.
you just said that. You just said 6.
Okay, great. Number 7. After serving in the Navy, John Glenn became a governor. He was in politics. Was he a governor? This is one of those ones where you're taking the quiz on Google Classroom and you're like, it sounds familiar, but I'm going to double check. This is a great double check one. Was he a governor, Abigail?
No.
No. What was he, Abigail?
A senator.
That is false. He was a senator for how many years? Do you remember?
25.
Yes. Okay.
Hey.
I think that actually... Oh, yeah. Here we go. Number 8. When John Glenn was 77 years old, he had a second chance to go into space. Here is another one. The Friendship 7 was in this chapter. There were 7 people on the first space flight. And guess how old he was when he went up?
77.
77. This is like the chapter of sevens. So, Friendship 7, he was 77, and there was 7 men chosen to be the first astronauts. Good connection. That makes it easy. 7, 7, 7.
Ready? True.
All right. Whoa. We're going to say goodbye. Houston,
Bye.
we're leaving.